order, please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sean, you here to speak?
I'm here to listen, but I do have something important to say.
That's a good decision. Go ahead. That's what I have.
Sean Rist, 53 Lancaster Road. I tried to bring this up at City Council meeting. I'm a little bit concerned about HUD's new role, affirmatively furthering fair housing, and the way that public participation has changed the requirements for public participation in the planning process. And I know that you specifically are very familiar with this. So I want to ask, would you consider doing some outreach to the Planning Commission, or have you considered, has anyone on this board considered how affirmatively furthering fair housing, HUD's new role, is going to affect the future development of Bristol? Particularly because of two reasons. Number one, we have an ongoing study for the Route 6 corridor, and there's going to be some build-outs on the Route 6 corridor. Number two, because the state's plan of conservation development is being updated right now, and so municipal leaders, members of our boards and commissions, members of the public have the opportunity to provide input, and specifically, if it's necessary, change Bristol's priority funding area into what's called a balanced priority funding area. And what that would allow is, because in the past 10 years, the state's plan of conservation development specifically, it doesn't require, but it basically coerces municipalities to build out next to rail corridors. The way that this is working in the state level is the state is targeting low-income communities to do it, and that just naturally happens to fall on a rail corridor. But the problem that Bristol could potentially have is, and this has happened in other communities in the United States, if you build out your housing in an area where you already have a high concentration of poverty, HUD can, on the federal level, come back to you and say, did you do everything that you could do to affirmatively further fair housing? And it's no longer being pushed by, it's no longer a complaint-driven process. It's now driven by demographics. This is brand new. So Bristol, as a recipient of community development block grant funds, already potentially could lose community development block grant funding if it is not affirmatively furthering fair housing. So this is why looking at balanced priority funding area is important for the city, because as we build out, and we might want to keep the downtown the highest density, we might want to build other kinds of housing in different areas in Bristol. And I'm just asking the BDA to reach out, because the BDA actually has excellent tools and personnel that reach out to the community in ways that the Planning Commission does not. And specifically in the Route 6 corridor study presentation, it actually asks the Planning Commission to use social networks and things like that. And I don't see that we're doing that. And the other problem is, the Planning Commission's workshops, which are supposed to be directed towards public participation, we don't have a proper representation of the demographics of Bristol in attendance at these meetings. And that's very concerning. And I think we need to address this. And it's going to be important that we address it within the next few months, because the state is going to adopt the plan of conservation development. And if we leave things the way they are and we build out our housing in the downtown and it becomes concentrated poverty or concentrated ethnicity, we could be in big trouble in the future. And it's the most important thing, I think, that we're facing as a city right now. And you don't have to agree with me, but I just ask that you look into it, especially because I think you know a lot more about it than everybody else does. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Ron. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes of November 28, 2016?
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Correspondence.
Motion to file.
No second.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, motion passes. New business by staff. Zoning commission letter.
Okay, so this was included in your packet as communication A. I just want to keep the board updated as sort of as this potential project sort of goes through the process here. Essentially, D'Amato Companies is considering a purchase in the 229 Technology Park. I've met with Ed D'Amato Jr. And we'll be meeting with his attorney in the future. But the issue here, maybe not issue, but just one of the process things here is that we need to work closely with planning on this particular project. We have a set of guidelines that govern the 229 Technology Park that sort of describe the types of companies that are allowed in the park. The guidelines obviously do not allow a company that would not be allowed in the IP zone. The 229 Park, we have various zones throughout the city that sort of designate what types of businesses and residences can go where. The 229 Park is an IP zone, in other words, an industrial park zone. And within that zone, we take guidance from Planning Commission, because the Planning Commission, the Zoning Commission specifically, helps determine what types of companies can go in what zones. And right now, it's undefined. It's undetermined what D'Amato would be defined as. But if they're defined as a construction company, that type of business is not currently allowed in an IP zone. So they would have to approach the Planning Commission first before they could even come to the Industrial Committee and sort of follow our normal process here at the BDA. So this is a project that's got a couple different layers. But I just wanted to let you all know that it's something that we're working on. Eventually it might, make its way to the Industrial Committee and then eventually to the full BDA board. But right now, there's a couple other layers that this project would have to sort of get through in order to even get to us. Again, just in the interest of keeping everybody informed on this, so when it comes up, it's not a surprise.
Okay, any questions on that? Okay, enterprise zone application.
Yeah, so we have, last month we passed an enterprise zone application for Supernatural for its property on North Main Street here. Now we have another. Obviously, Bob Dismaris and Bikers Edge have purchased the former Bristol Press building. That falls within our enterprise zone, and as such, if the owner completes certain renovations to the property, it would be eligible to enjoy our enterprise zone tax abatement program. And again, what that program is that for a commercial property, if the ownership spends a minimum of $175,000 on qualifying renovations, he would enjoy a 7-year sort of graduated tax abatement on the value of the property after renovations, right? So if it starts here as a value and it goes up to here, he's going to be able to enjoy an abatement on that difference. We did this last month. So this is very similar to last month's application. And again, the way we sort of word the motion here is that the owner has to complete certain things, right, in order to be eligible for the program. That's our job at the staff level to make sure that happens. So understand that I'm going to be making sure that the ownership spends the required amount of money on the project and is doing the right types of improvements to qualify. But again, it's a pretty typical application for the program.
Thank you. New business by commissioners. Do I need motions?
We got a pretty sizable motion for that one.
Yeah, please.
Proposed motion, whereas the property known as 99 Main Street is located with the boundaries of the enterprise zone established by the City of Bristol and State of Connecticut, whereas 99 Bristol Press LLC has purchased 99 Main Street and is completing the conversion of the building to a retail mixed-use. Whereas per Article 14, Section 18-201 of the City of Bristol Code of Ordinance, assessments on commercial real property within the enterprise zone, which is improved to the extent of $175,000, are eligible to be fixed for a period of 7 years from the time of such improvement, and shall defer any increase in assessment attributed to such improvements according to the following schedule. Year 1, 100% deferral. Year 2, 100% deferral. Year 3, 50% deferral. Year 4, 40% deferral. Year 5, 30% deferral. Year 6, 20% deferral. Year 7, 10% deferral. I hereby make a motion to recommend the approval of 99 Bristol Press LLC's application dated November 30th, 2016, requesting a 7-year enterprise zone tax abatement schedule for all improvements to 99 Main Street associated with the property's redevelopment to a retail mixed-use establishment subject to all conditions identified for commercial projects as outlined in Article 14 Enterprise Zone Assessments of the City of Bristol Code of Ordinances. Be it further resolved that this matter be forwarded to the Bristol Assessor's Office for review.
Second.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Let's go back to new business item A, zoning commission letter. Can I have a motion to accept the report?
So moved.
Motion made, seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll go to new business by commissioner. Starting my far left.
None.
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 Chair has none. Old business by staff.
Good evening. I'm working on the New Year application materials that you have in your packets, and if you have any questions about that, I can certainly answer them. And I'm working on the city budget, which is due to the comptroller January 20th. We should probably have a BDA budget committee meeting sometime the second week of January to approve that, and to make any changes to it before we submit it to the comptroller's office. And then at the January meeting of the full BDA board, we'll approve the submission.
That's it.
I'm reminded that after the applications come in at the end of January, we have a conflict of interest procedure that we have to go through during the month of February before we make any funding decisions. And so you'll be getting information from me on that.
Good idea at this point. Any questions for Debbie? Motion to accept her report?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Made second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Justin.
I want to just say on Deb's update, this is a really busy time for Deb. We have, obviously, we're preparing to go out to the world and request applications for the BDA allocation, or CDBG allocation. But Deb is also obviously invaluable with our budget, so thanks to Deb for working on that stuff this month and next month. It's a tough time of year. Real quick, before I do my update, I want to just, earlier in the meeting before we started, Chris passed out, we received this today, but it's essentially a thank you from the Bristol Historical Society for CDBG contributions over the years. So it's addressed obviously to myself, but to members of the board, so I wanted to make sure that you all got that tonight. And then my update. So first of all, I noticed today, of course I goofed up. I left the November month on there, but it certainly is the December update for you guys. I'm looking through this. One of the things, our facade improvement program, so we've been running that for a few years now, and we had a deadline to spend all funds by the end of this month. We received an extension on that. we had a couple of companies that were interested but sort of became uninterested in the last couple of months. So I wanted some more time to spend every dime that we have from the state on that. With that said, we have a project that we're finishing up on the building at the corner of Main Street and Riverside Avenue. That's where the Verisconi self-defense place is, and there's a new gym there, by the way, that should get some press later this week. And then also, we are talking with Bob Dismaris of Biker's Edge about a large-scale project at the former Bristol Press building. Hopefully that we can help out with there. Pods. So last week, Pods did receive its certificate of occupancy. That's big stuff. That was on December 15th, I think. Mayor and I went out there to congratulate them. And actually, the CO oftentimes is the trigger for us to release grant funds. So the mayor was able to hand over the grant check to Pods and Glenn. It was a nice photo op. We had to get that up on social media. And then they're looking at an open house ribbon cutting for everyone in January. So we're looking to do that. I talked about the 229 Technology Park project, our potential project. In your packet is we included a couple of articles. One of those is an article covering the grant to Arthur G. Russell. That was approved, well, it was approved by the Mayor's Economic Development Committee early this month, and then the City Council approved that on Tuesday. Very enthusiastic approval by the Council and by the Mayor's group. So those are the type of projects I might have mentioned at the Council meeting, that the idea is to market those so that other companies hopefully can sort of understand what type of community are and how we support our businesses. So that's a nice story. We the Startup Bristol article too. So we included that article in the packet. You know, I've said this I think a lot over the last couple of weeks, but you know, we had Bristol Yoga and Cafe, which is now sort of just Bristol Yoga in Bristol, and they were and are a young company, and by young I mean just their years in business. They came to us and want to take part in our Startup Bristol program. The committee that we put together was really taken with their business concept. They won a small grant, but here they are. They're, again, company just starting out that's looking to sort of pivot and change its course of business with the ultimate goal of remaining a business, remaining profitable, and remaining in the city of Bristol. So I think it was interesting to the media, perhaps, that we gave a grant to a company, and here they are changing things up. But in reality, this is what startups do. I think we need to be ready for it if we're going to work with startups and Startup Bristol. And to their credit, they made a good business decision here. It can be tough as a new business owner to maybe give up on a part of your business that you're really passionate about, but they did it to save the business, or I shouldn't say that. They did it to make the overall business as profitable as possible, and in a way they should be commended. So I think we need to look at that project a little differently maybe than it was portrayed. What else do I have? Dawn had put in here, Dawn puts all the brownfields information and grant information, by the way, in these updates. The H.J. Mills site, which has been a project several years in the making now, Robin Bugby secured most of the, I think all the grant funds for that project, but we're working with the LEP on the project to finally close it out. The reason why it's taken a while is that testing must happen after a property is cleaned, and then it has to be verified by the state. So there's been some time lapse there. We had an LEP that was on the project that left, so we're finally trying to close that project out. But it gives you an idea of brownfields, how you can do a lot with a brownfield, but it does take time, and that's a good thing. We want to make sure the project's safe for the community. I think that's really it. Also, out of Dawn's office, the Working Cities Challenge Grant, which I know we talked about last month, but that's moving forward. Again, great opportunity for the city to partner with the United Way and with many wonderful social service organizations. Debbie's been helping out with this too in the city to apply for funds to really improve sort of the Bristol environment for low and moderate income folks looking to improve themselves, specifically from like an economic development standpoint. I guess that's a fair way to put it, from a job standpoint. So we're really excited about that. And then also, Dawn submitted a grant for EDA funding to hopefully help with some infrastructure down on Center Square, meaning the roadway and streetscape and traffic signal. We haven't heard anything on that yet, but we're going to work to contact EDA and hopefully move on to basically the next step of the application process on that.
Any questions for Justin?
Through the chair, just a comment. There was an article in the Harvard Current today about fuel cell energy.
Yeah.
And the Middle Street property was mentioned in that article.
So fuel cell, what's happened with fuel cell is essentially, it's not a secret now that we partnered with fuel cell in a couple of ways. And one way we partnered with fuel cell obviously was in hopes that fuel cell would win a state bid, basically, to purchase alternative energy, clean energy, from several different alternative energy projects. They would have been one of those. The state made the decision, I think DEEP made the decision essentially to not select fuel cell's proposal for the project 8094 Middle Street. In fact, the state did not select any fuel cell proposals. I think that they had maybe concerns with the technology or the way it harnessed energy. But fuel cells worked really hard. And that article, in a way, was a positive, I think, in that the state needs to wake up to fuel cells, not just fuel cell energy, but to start considering a Class 1 renewable, because I think that's the way it's defined. Right. And maybe it's the most cost-effective thing out there. And not to mention, fuel cell energy specifically is a wonderful business with jobs and with projects around the state. So it wasn't selected, but that doesn't mean that the project is dead. We continue to engage with fuel cell, and I think that project still has legs. It just needs to be maybe changed a bit to be financially viable for them, but we're going to still pursue that. Is that fair, Mayor?
Yeah, they're definitely still interested in doing the project down the Middle Street. They just have to make the numbers work.
Yeah.
Anything else? Motion to accept. Place the file.
So moved.
Second. We have a second.
Second.
Motion made second. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the motion passes. Old business by commissioner, starting my far left.
No. None.
None. None.
Chair has none. Committee reports. Downtown committee was canceled, right?
Yeah, downtown committee was canceled. We didn't have a quorum last week, so we canceled. But while we had talked last time, the LOI period for Bristol Hospital has been extended through the end of February. Bristol Hospital has selected a developer for its project, is right now negotiating with said developer, so we haven't had an opportunity to meet with them. I think right after the holidays we will, and we can iron out any remaining issues.
That's all we have. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion passes. Have a Merry Christmas. You say Merry Christmas. I think it's bad politics.